Pacific Mornings with Aggie and Alpha.
Welcome back into the program. 21 minutes after 7 o'clock. Well, wherever it is that you're tuning in and which part of Aotearoa, we pray that the morning is looking more friendlier to you than it is in Tamaki Makaurau. But apparently we need water. So it's either we need water or we need to shower. One of those things you pick. We're all guilty of. Joining us in studio now to continue our usual Tuesday Talanoa Around Health is the team from Pacific Heartbeat of the Heart Foundation, led by Vetelenga Tutuila Lefeau Lio Sauvao Vauli from the Pacific Heart Foundation. And joining us this morning is the director for Fakaolla, and I think she's got a new title that she's about to correct me when she comes on live, Mafi Funaki-Tahifote. Thank you very much for both of you for being here, and good morning.
Good morning, Malole Saifua, Malole Usu. Thank you for having us on board this morning. Malo.
Morning, Mafi.
Good morning, malo tama pongpongini, everybody. It's we're blessed with lots of water in Auckland, and it's probably also for the rest of the country. Just a little introduction as I'm a guest speaker this morning with Pacific Heartbeat at the Heart Foundation, which was home for me for about 20 years. But now started a new role at Mass Foundation, or Medical Assurance Society Foundation, as one of the heads of foundation, but working also as a dietitian at Tongan Health Society on Tuesday. So it's a mixture of Pacific there. But this morning, as we're heading into Easter, we talk about death of Christ, but also celebrating his resurrection. And part of that celebration would be for this morning for us to be talking about cooking for celebrations. So for Pacific, Samoan, Tongan communities, Kiripas Language Week, we've got Kiripas there, Niuean, Cook Islands, the rest of the Pacific Island countries. We love our food. And love our food also comes food especially not so good for us. Foods that are high in salt, our bovi or bulumasima. We've got our bisupo or corned beef, our kapapolu there. We've also got high fatty foods. But in terms of our Pacific dishes, we have Kara as the most popular brand. And what are some of the Samoan dishes that
Kara's
used for celebrations?
Kara's is, and I don't know if it's still going, but Kara's seem to be a sponsor of the Blues. I don't know what's happening there. But for the Samoans, especially leading into this Holy Week, things like, I'm sure a lot of families will be preparing dishes like luau, parusami, your oka, and your sapasui, of course, your sapasui, falifokalo, and fish, and then of course the whole puakas or puaa. So those are sort of the main dishes that many of our Samoan families will be preparing for this weekend. And what about the Tongans? What's some dishes that they'll be ready for feasting?
They bathe in kara.
Yeah, kara also comes into some of the Tongan celebration dishes. Lo'ifeke, coconut cream with octopus. We've also got, in terms of drinks, that otai or the fruit punch in there. There's also desserts like whaikakai or will be fausi in Samoan. Those are some of the common dishes that will tend to show up at celebrations. But how do we make those a little bit healthier and better for the heart?
That is the key, is, during these celebrations, is making them healthier. And I think one thing that our family does, especially with the oka, is, when I make it, is, I used to be a bit, but I just make it a bit more, dilute it a bit. Instead of adding water, I actually add trim milk. I add trim milk, and that gives it that consistency. And obviously using, and then one thing families getting used to is sapasui with vegetables. I know it's not the norm, but using the
Tutuila, please stop swearing.
you gotta try it. So
Tongan sapasui's got veggies.
The light one and vegetables in it. So like with anything, it's trying to get our families used to adding more greens into that and less salt, you know, and our like bisopo or our luau, wharifokalo, you know, diluting it with water, just so there's not so much you know, of that salt in there. What about for yourself? How are you? What's some of the things you're going to do there, Mafi? Or our family should be doing?
We are talking about celebrations, and yeah, you mentioned that with the subsuges, you know, throwing in a lot more vegetables and they're bulking them. They are cheaper than meat.
Frozen vegetables is fine.
Yeah, we don't really find in celebrations, especially for Pacific, to have rice there. But if you do or have it at home, brown rice would be better for us. If we're talking about bread on a day-to-day basis, it would be wholemeal multigrain. We have a lot of diabetes in our communities, and we've had that recent report about social and economic impact of type 2 diabetes. Then those options are much better for that. And of course, if you look after your blood sugar levels, your heart's happier as well. So you talked about low-fat milk before, you know, choosing those, and if you're having yogurt and cheese, add those in as well. We have talked about our povia pumasima. I know for a lot of our Tongan communities, the mutton
Please don't
flats.
touch that part. Move along.
So just removing the visible fat in there and adding lots of flavor. A lot of our Pacific love the spicy hot chili. Then those can add flavor. But definitely we're looking at portion size, so you can enjoy the foods that you're having, but portion size. So definitely if you're looking at your hands, so if you're putting your hands together, it will be the amount of vegetables you'll have. Of course, the meat would be, if I'm putting my hand out, it will be the palm of your hand to be the size of the meat. But if you're having fish, you've got the bigger hand to show that. But what then should our plate look like if we're at the feast and we're going through with the plate, and you're looking at my plate? What should it look like?
Well, it's funny you talk about plates. I've been to a few funerals over the last couple of weeks, and probably a good tip is, you know, as we all eye up the table, we always look at the buffet. But I think one of the key things for our Pacifica people is make sure that we go to where the salads are first. Okay, so the secret there, tau ili, is if you fill up your plate with over half the salad, then there's not much room for your for the rest of them. So that's one of the things that I used to do.
I've never been to a funeral. One of the hardest things to find, I would find the Red October before I would find the table salads. I'm going to stop coming to the funerals you're going to.
Yeah, and that would be the thing, would be adding those dishes that when you're at the celebrations or mourning of a loved one, that we are seeing a lot of the colourful, you know, green, orange, red, the colour of the rainbows, as the children would say, to be as part of the dishes. And then when you're looking at your plate, it will be a colourful plate, not white and brown and just yellow. We dress up colourful, so our plate should be colourful as well. Half the plate should be vegetable, and then a bit of meat, and you've got a bit of the taro.
Yeah.
You know, here's a question for you both. You know, with our people, we never plan when it comes to cooking. We plan for the mess, but we very rarely plan for the ingredients. And so, you know, that's always a question. And when it comes to cooking, especially for the festive season, there will be the 3 days of, as Jesus resurrect, we go under.
Yes.
What would be some of the tips in terms of planning to make sure that you're buying the right, you know, so if it's going to be fat, it's going to be, we're looking at unsaturated, you know, or the good fat. What would be tips for people when they're going into planning when it comes to cooking, so that they have time to go and look for the, because you know when times are short, like just grab the one we know, which is always high in salt, high in sugar, high in fat. You know, are there any tips in terms of cooking for preparations, but planning for the ingredients? Because if you don't plan, you're pretty much planning to fail and reverting back to the mess of everything.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And when you're planning for celebrations and for menus, we've talked about adding lots of colour. So when you're purchasing and you're pushing your trolley along the aisles, there will be lots of vegetables in there, and we've incorporated in our talanoa this morning about chop suey. You know, we've got chop suey. A lot of our Samoan brothers and sisters, you know, don't talk to me about adding colourful vegetables, such an insult. But, you know, adding those into dishes, every opportunity does actually bulk up and it's healthier. And, like, you know, simply just trimming off the fat and adding more vegetables when you're looking at price per kilo, it is cheaper for vegetables like carrots or broccoli this time of the year, cheaper. When you're looking at red meat, they're about $19, 20 something per kilo. That's for a small amount. So we tend not to think that we can save more money on not having bulk up with meat, but bulk up with lesser, you know, cheaper ingredients. Yeah, so, and some of the tricks as well is maybe the size of the plate. If you have a smaller plate, then you plan for that, because you're looking at your plate like it's, you know, huge, but the size of the plates, it's shrunk. So at bigger plates.
Mafi, can I also ask you, what tip then can you give me for me to go and tell the gathering of my family to make sure that their plate looks healthy?
Or use smaller plates, like Mafi said. And then,
Your whole house is just sausage.
It's quite funny. When I used to coach rugby or First 15, what I would always say to the boys is, when you go up for your feed, remember, it's not the last supper. Don't stack your plates. Yeah, you know, our young men. Yeah.
Small little tips, but it's getting used to that in colourful. If you haven't had, like, if you've got 10 dishes and you've not had a colourful salad or added vegetables into a dish, then maybe one of the 10, and then the next one will be 2 out of the 10, and it's getting used to it. But make sure that those colourful vegetables added in, and some of the fruits, that they are yummy, you know, nice to eat salads. Some of our vegetables get cooked until they're no more flavour.
And no fizz, but water at our functions is a key.
Yeah. So water only is best. Yeah.
I think the other one, just as important too, I'm going to add in there, is not just adding the colour, but what we're using as the base for the cooking. Right? So you can have a very colourful salad, and then in between the colourful salad is like thick mayonnaise.
Yeah.
So it's
John
like,
and mayonnaise.
you know, so it's and then you've got a nice healthy looking chop suey, but they've been using lard oil, because you know the smell of lard. You know, I grew up in the islands. Give me a bottle of oil, that's not too healthy, but a lard, it makes the onion smells amazing. So I think, other than the color, use healthy fats.
Yeah.
So you're not just getting a chop suey with color, but you know, at least missing a few other than here.
Yeah, and don't get caught as well if you're saying healthier fats. There, I'll have lots and lots. But that's a healthier fat or the not so healthier fat, it will still make the size bigger than what we'd like it to be. So, yeah, definitely.
I see here you've got milk. You've got choose low-fat milk, yogurt and cheese. Now, we've been talking about milk this week, Aggie? And we were looking at the history of milk and the fact that we're the only species that, when we wean off the milk of mummy, we go back into drinking the milk of a cow. No other mammal in the world does this. And so we've been talking about alternatives. I know it's hard, but soy milk. You know, so we're like, what do you do that for? Because, well, at the end of the day, the cow's milk is quite so strong. It's literally made for cows.
But then soy milk, good, they come from soy, a plant, better for us in terms of the heart, but they tend to be a lot more expensive. So you can get healthier milk and still from cow. So the colour gives us that. So darker blue top has got the highest amount of fat but the least amount of calcium for our bones and our teeth. The light blue, a little bit more calcium and lesser fat. But then the light green, which not a lot of our Pacific
Very
actually are
expensive.
used to that
Too light.
taste. The too light has the most amount of calcium but the least amount of fat. So the prices are the same there and cheaper than the soy milk. So yeah, so it's a thing that we've got to balance because healthier for us in terms of our bodies, but also healthy for our wallets. So
And the whānau wallet.
And the
Yes.
environment as well. But look, any last tips before we close up about cooking for celebration? I like the fact that this is very timely. You guys brought it because we are a few days away from some serious kinds of resurrection that's about to go on, especially when it comes to the food. But any last words before we go into the music?
Yeah, I think you just, I suppose, like you said, planning for these festivities and making sure that, you know, you use vegetables and salads, have those in there, and also drinking plenty of water. And the other tip is maybe looking at buying the light versions, light kara, light milk, and the light soya sauce.
And have sauces instead of plates.
Small plates.
Don't worry about what anybody say. Auntie and uncle can curse you, but at the end of the day, you can say, "I've just saved your life."
yeah.
Tutuila Lefeau Lio Sauvao and Mafi Funaki-Tahifote, thank you very much
Thank
for your
you,
time
and
this morning.
Thanks for having us.
And we'll have another catch up to see how well we all did during
And happy
the
Easter to all our listeners out there.
Yeah, blessed
Ngwele
Easter.
Aseta.
38 minutes after